All right, y'all, welcome to another edition of The Boy. Thank you very much for joining. Tonight we've got an awesome group of folks here for the podcast. Got old Kenny, Mr. Bro right there. Got JP, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot in the house. And what was your name again? I'm so sorry.
Shauna.
And Shauna's here with them. I have Heidi, and we also have Mr. Jeff, the big dog, Deets in the house. And yeah, so a lot of stuff going on. Hey, I'm just glad again that you all are joining us. Trying to get some more viewers, more listeners, whatever you want to call it. So give us some shout out on your Facebook or spam it out to friends that you think that want to be involved. Now, if you're tuning in just now, we have a chat stream that's available. So make sure you check it out on the Ustream page. Say something during the broadcast, join in, and all that stuff. It'll be awesome. We also have a call-in number, 904-638. I'm typing it in on the chat stream right now, 5119. Give us a holler. Let us know what you're thinking. If we sound like a bunch of imbeciles, then tell us why we're so silly, and we will be more than happy to accept your opinion. All right, so before I interrupted everybody with the intro to this podcast, we were already sitting around talking about some stuff, and I guess so lately, it's been on the news and stuff like that. What we were actually talking about was the recent shooting in Oklahoma. Sort of heavy stuff to be talking about on just some chintzy podcast that I'm broadcasting from my living room. But hey, that's what we're here for, right? We're all having a conversation. So anyway, what were you guys saying anyway before I rudely interrupted you?
The SWAT team and someone was growing meth in their house or something.
Whose house?
I don't know. Deets was saying something about it.
We moved from Oklahoma to an incident that occurred in my neighborhood.
Oh, did you? Oh, see, that shows how much I was paying attention.
Where you
Where's your neighborhood at?
Down in Orlando. My brother sent me a photo of a SWAT team armored personnel carrier. There were reports of a member of the neighborhood walking up down the street with a shotgun who had been either visiting or residing in the house where months earlier the SWAT team had been called out to deal with a meth issue.
So he went back to the house?
I think it was a new person from what my brother had told me.
Like there were squatters?
So you kick somebody out for going.
No, it's more of like a friend. I think the guy growing meth was back in about a month. But
Oh, gotcha.
yeah, you'd think that would get you a longer jail sentence, but apparently
No,
not.
I guess not.
No doubt.
On the wrist.
That's nuts.
As long as you're not growing, you just get your friend to grow the meth for you.
Grow them out,
Yeah,
like cook it up?
It's like
Man, you haven't been
grow
watching
from plants.
Breaking Bad, man.
Yeah.
They're like teaches you how to do it.
But yeah, I mean, I think with regard to the story though that you were talking about, though, James mentioning, from what I remember, and anyone out there, or anyone here, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a college baseball player in Oklahoma that was visiting his girlfriend and jogging in a neighborhood, and from police reports at the time, there were 3 people who had watched him jog by the house, decided we are going to shoot him, and proceeded to drive up behind him, one of them shooting him in the back and killing the Australian native who was in the country. So
Wow, that doesn't put a bad strain on relations with them.
there actually was an Australian politician who called for a ban on tourism to the United States
Get
because
the
of this.
fuck out of here.
What's that? Yeah, totally picking up the hookah. So for those of you guys that are listening at home, just in case you had some different thoughts going in your minds, we do have a hookah that's being passed around.
All you hear is the
So if you hear this Mr. Gurgles, then that's what you're hearing. So just letting you know, so nobody gets in trouble, their employers or something like that.
I'm sure we'll still hear it on the floor.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever. If it's that bad, someone will write in and tell us how bad it sounds. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, I think
Oh, you were you were saying something.
the interesting thing about this particular case is the parallels, or maybe not parallels, to the recent year-long Trayvon Martin issue of the media so prevalently or so easily bringing race into an issue there, but the race that is involved in this particular case seems to not be as prevalent in the headline news. It seems to not be mentioned why this occurred, and it's, I don't know, I think it's a question to be asked as to why.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that the media took full advantage of the racial
I agree.
problem or the racial
Issue.
in the Trayvon Martin case. Like, they took full advantage of that, and they almost made it about that to an extent, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, and they're still trying. They're trying. There's some media people that are trying to make this case into the same thing. Like, I was listening to Sean Hannity, and he was basically saying that he doesn't understand why Jesse James, the Reverend,
Jesse
Jackson.
Jackson.
Sorry, Jesse
Cowboy?
Well,
How do you get in politics?
He said he doesn't understand why Jesse Jackson isn't, running these, mobs of people down the streets chanting, about this case when he was about the Trayvon Martin case.
Yeah, the same thing goes for the incident that happened in Gulfport a couple weeks ago. Those kids that beat the crap out of that one, 3 black kids beat the crap out of one white kid. And you don't ever hear any type of public outcry like, oh my God, racism. No one jumps, no one is quick to turn that into a racial issue, but yet, no one cares about it.
Well, hold on. So should we turn that into a racial issue?
No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't. I'm just saying that, like, there's
I don't
no
think it's a
public
racial
outcry
issue.
over that,
I don't believe that there is a racial
There shouldn't be
issue in
an
the
issue
country.
with race at all.
I mean,
Well, I don't know, I disagree with
there's
that.
obviously still racial issues, but these kids that carry guns and ride around looking to put damage on, just any random person, or cause harm or rob somebody, that happens every day. It happens every day, and it happens with every ethnicity as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if you go into any jail, I mean, yeah, the statistics show that it's going to be predominantly African American in that jail, but it's not just African Americans.
Yeah.
And it's not just murderers that are African Americans or just murderers that are white men, Caucasian, or however you want to put it. I don't think race is the issue.
Well, I mean, so it might not be the issue in this. Well, I don't know about this incident. I'm pretty sure it was in this incident. I mean, we're turning something before where race was questionable. Well, I mean, that's the thing. For the media, race wasn't questionable. I swear, it seems like they completely concocted this
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
But the fact that black people are joining in on this as if it is their rally cry for Zimmerman, and then now it's like, oh well, this is just normal. If it's just gang violence. It was an initiation for a gang, so it's all right that this Australian guy got killed. So we're not going to put it all over the place. And my dog's knocking down microphones here. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. But that's the thing. I don't think anyone wants to turn this into, well, what is it? Like people like me who are sort of pissed off that this isn't a big deal.
Well, I think if you want to point out the racial issues, and I think that's just how people are. Obviously, how some people in this room are even feeling. Like, if you're going to point out the racial issues on one side of it,
You gotta point out
and
the
not pull it out on the other side, what are you doing it for in the first place?
See, we shouldn't really be
But
pointing
it's not
fingers,
exactly.
though.
I don't think it's about. It's not. That's not the problem, and that's really what I'm trying to get at. Like, I don't think that's far from the problem. The problem is that.
At the same time, we've got to look at the why behind it. I mean, why would the media?
I mean, it's really similar. It's two really similar situations. If you, I mean,
I don't
know if that's similar, man. I don't know if that's
if
similar.
somebody, it's a bully with a gun versus somebody allegedly minding their own business.
I would argue there's fairly limited similarities in this. I mean, you had an instance where Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, I mean, you had a 911 call, and there's the idea of the editing by, I believe it was ABC who did that. I mean, you had...
That was NBC.
NBC. One of the BCs decided to edit the video. I mean, you had a 911 call, you had a 911 operator instructing George Zimmerman as to what to do, and you had the ability of the media who, I mean, at the end of the day, the media is a business. Their job is to drive viewership and drive advertising.
Which they did really well.
And
by
so they're
making it
going to
a
use
racial
things
issue.
to their advantage there. I mean, here
Yeah,
you
but
have-
that's the thing. They might be able to get. I mean, come on. There's got to be some kind of hazard here, like some kind of moral issue here, where you can drum up race issues, and a whole people follow along. You know what I'm saying? Like a whole community of people follow along with that. And you start that, you just create that. It feels like out of nowhere to me.
I mean, they do the
I
same
mean,
thing.
if I'm wrong, give me perspective out there in the world. Because here's the thing: if I walked around with the same, making up the same assumptions that Obama, for instance, said that black people should be able to do when they see a white woman clutching their purse, they must automatically think that's racist, and that's okay. So why can't, but yet it would be wrong if I saw 3 black kids driving around in a car all slow, and it's just assumed there's thugs doing bad things. That's bad for me. So what if I said, like, he's saying, well, black people, well, what did he say, have experiences that just don't go away. We share experiences that, frankly, just can't go away. What if I said the same thing? Like, well, maybe the white girl or white woman clutching the purse has experiences that just won't go away. Is that okay? Is that equally justifiable? And if so, think about what the ramifications are of that. We're back into just promoting prejudice all over again. You see what I mean? Like, so this is what we're getting out of that. The dialogue we're getting is basically more poison. It seems to me, and here we are. So, like, on one hand, I don't want to make a huge deal about this being racially motivated, or even if it is racially motivated, I don't necessarily want to make a big deal about, the same outcry, the same way that, or maybe I should. Maybe white people should be crying out and yelling and screaming the same way that black people were for Trayvon Martin. Australia probably is. You know what I mean?
If a whole group of white people start doing it, it's going to be automatically labeled as racist.
Why can't people just be mad about something that happened?
Well, because we've
it
created
is
this
people, it's
dialogue of race.
But when you say,
That's what I'm
we've
saying. I feel like
manufactured
there's such a bigger problem than just race that it just
Like
blows my
everyone-
mind that
When
race
you
is
say-
all
when
that
you say we
the media
have-
portrays.
when you say we have created, I mean we as a collection of people. I mean, why is it that it has to be this idea of race? Why is it that a collective, even in the Trayvon situation, why is it that I would argue that not every white person felt one way, and argue that not every black person felt one way, and argue
No
it's the
doubt.
same thing with this case. Why can't it be about the people? Why can't we look past the idea of one skin color versus the other looking differently upon an event, and not think that there are people out there who, regardless of their nationality
I think-
and or ethnicity, can look at an event and say, hey, that was wrong.
Well, I think it's because a lot of us aren't ready for that. Because there are a lot of us that want this whole, stop labeling ourselves and start talking as a we instead of me, instead of I. But not everyone's going to be on board with that, and it's going to take a long, long time before we can actually get to a point where we can all just get together and say this is a problem, and it's not just a black person's problem, it's not just a white person's problem. We're always we're categorizing shit, always. This falls into this category, so I have to be angry
It's
about
not
it.
just a black person or white person's problem if I can't go visit my girlfriend and jog down the street without having to worry about some 17-year-olds wanting to hunt me down just because.
It's
See,
not.
and
That's
it's
a problem.
It's not even
So
about
That's a
race,
problem. And
it's
like we were
an
saying, when we
inclination
talked
to
about
do
it
something
earlier,
stupid.
I feel like that's a problem. I could completely, and I don't know how many people in this room are from Jacksonville, but I was born and raised here, and I could see that happening. It's happened,
See what happened.
To see a situation like that happening
Most
in Oklahoma,
Oh, where people
happening
just got
here,
shot like
where
that?
somebody was just minding their own business, walking their dog, or walking to the mailbox in their front yard and just got shot, or going on a jog.
I think most large cities have seen issues like that. I know Chicago and Oakland and places like that have seen their murder rates kind of skyrocket. And I think the issue at hand, if you want to talk about the media, is that they are a business, and I think people forget that. I think we maybe began as a country with a media that was really there to report things and to do stuff. but
Because
I
it
think-
started as live news, but now it's just like
And now with the idea of I mean, we have to.
studios.
The media has to fill 24 hours of news, and they have to create things, and they have to drive viewership. And the easiest way to drive viewership is to feed upon emotion. And they're going to do that, and I think if we, as a society, can look past the idea of, well, the media said it, thus it must be true, and just use the media as another means at which
Instead
we
of
gather
letting the media
information.
control the masses.
Yeah, but I mean, so how else are you supposed to get information then?
Well, I mean,
That's the
podcasts, internet.
What?
but
If
people-
I can't
we're
trust
saying
journalists in the media, then who am I supposed to trust? You know, what, people like me? Podcasts, people
Honestly,
like
I
me?
would not
Well, I think you know.
Hell no,
I
you
think if you
shouldn't
look,
trust
I think if you look at the case that we're talking about here, I mean, someone earlier mentioned who it was trying to drum up Sean Hannity. I mean, we have Fox News, who I tend to enjoy watching, but I would argue is not as fair and balanced as they claim. And then you have a place like MSNBC that might have been drumming up support for their viewers during the Trayvon case. I think you've got to understand who it is that you're watching. It's just like, I mean, we talked about the last podcast, this idea of looking through an author's bias, and you can never look through that idea of how biased one is by just reading and or watching that particular episode or that particular book. I think you have to be well versed in different ideas, and to get you well versed in what one argument is versus the other.
Oh, okay, so, I get that. You want to, God, my dog, so
His
loud when
nails.
he walks.
Hey man, that dog is awesome.
I know, Nike's awesome. He's sitting with me on that shot that you guys see up there. Oh, so what I was going to say is, so you have that. Yeah, I understand that the media is a business, and I understand they've got to, run things alive, but it's still, and you want to look at multiple news sources and stuff like that, but when they want to put in a bias that possibly incites, I mean, this is the best kind of ratings, and this is the best kind of, because it's infectious and infuriating, and makes you want to get involved in it, and you want to watch it, but at what cost? What is that doing to us as a people? So I'm looking at the chat stream. Troy Alexander here says, if intra-country war were to happen, would not a race war top your list? I mean, at this point, right now, I would almost say yeah. Like, I could see that. I could see people getting to the point where, well, first of all, I'm going to find out who I trust. And then what's it going to be? Are we going to, like, break into clans or something? I mean, like, what's going to happen?
Red versus
It's
blue.
almost getting to that point now, because we've talked the rhetoric up. We've set things in our minds to a certain place that we are unwilling to change, and people are to the point where where they say stuff like, well, that's just my opinion, and it stops there, like as if that's okay. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was someone's opinion that they should eradicate a whole people. It was someone's opinion that other people weren't the same as others, or didn't have the same, they were subordinated in status, and therefore they should be slaves. That was their opinion. So, I mean, it's not, no, you should be able to discuss ideas, and your opinion should be malleable.
See, that's the thing. Not a lot of people can think that way, because we all have this innate urge to satisfy the self. So we have to, a lot of us are selfish in our rhetoric. We don't. I mean, we're willing to listen to the opinions of others, but we're not willing to take the time to pick it apart and
Well,
actually
I
understand
think
it.
we're willing to listen to the opinions of others if they sort of fall in line with ours.
Yeah,
a
that
lot
is
of
true.
times.
I think the great downfall of this country is what you just mentioned, James, is the non-malleable opinions that people have. And I think if a intra-country war, Mr. Alexander, were to break out, I think the left versus the right would be over a race war. I think it would be blue versus red. I think you'd have, if you look at a map, you'd have the coastal states versus the heartland. So I think that's where the country falls ideologically. I think I think anybody to try to characterize one race versus the other as having an overarching thought that they portray is feeding the idea of is kind of feeding this problem that we have, this non-malleable approach that one has to debate or to topics. I think you look at the recent election, it was, you know, one was right and one was wrong, and depending on what side you were on, it depended upon which was right and
The
which
media
was wrong.
making,
I was a liberal, I would've
making
said
these,
I'm right. If I was a
but the
Republican, I
media
would've
making
said I
that
was right.
stuff about race is
Ooh.
feeding.
Interesting text message from my brother. He votes for rich versus poor for the intercountry war.
Rich would definitely.
Yeah, Rich would
I
like
like
that
that.
one.
They have their own army
Well,
at their disposal.
hold on, what
Come on now,
army?
Peter Pan.
They're gonna hire the
Or
poor.
Morse and,
Dude, they'll hire.
They're gonna hire
That
the
is
poor
true.
to
That's
fight
true.
with each other.
Poor for the
That's
win.
what's gonna
Poor for the
happen.
win. And the meek shall inherit the earth. Damn it.
So what do you think about
Come
the
on, Little John.
idea that the media purposely blew up this race issue as a distraction from the NSA scandal?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Or a distraction from the Fast and Furious scandal, or a
Oh.
distraction from the Libya scandal, or a
You-
distraction
hold
from the
on.
IRS
Do you
scandal.
really
Or
think
the-
the media is that in tune to actually cause
I
distractions?
don't doubt. I wouldn't
Well, you
doubt
still
it.
have to
I wouldn't
cause-
doubt it.
For
I would not doubt
for the
it.
government?
I think that a
I
certain
think
part
the
of the
government-
government controls the media.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
So,
only that,
it's not the media.
The rich people too.
I mean,
They
is
have
it
You
state
pay someone
media.
to say
basically?
something
Are we
on the
running the
media.
state media? I mean, that's the thing. So like, so Troy again dumped in here that even as a Republican, Fox News claim of fair and balanced is a joke, and I'd agree with that. But you know, when I hear people and I talk to people about politics and stuff, which I usually don't that much, they'll say stuff about whatever, and I'll say, where'd you hear that from? And they'll say something like MSNBC. I'm like, well, come on, dude, you can't give me that's what actually happened.
It was on Twitter.
And he's like, what do you think Fox News would tell you? I'm
Every
like, I don't
news
know.
station
It was on
report different.
Fox-
I'm not
it was on
necessarily
Fox
saying
News
that
Twitter.
either. I'm not saying that either. But then to just simply say, oh yeah, MSNBC is tantamount to fact, period.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's just like saying Fox News is tantamount to fact, period. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't agree with either of them. And that's the thing. Actually, I wrote an editor today. The editor of, what is it called? Factcheck.org. I wrote him and I said, basically, as a consumer, just dear editor, as a consumer of information today, what do you suggest I do to find the truth if I don't trust anything that the media sends? And should I trust you and your organization? I don't remember exactly what I wrote him, but basically that sums it up. And so I'm interested to see if I even get a response back. But
It'll
it was
be yes.
and part of it was because I was curious after I saw the Oklahoma shooting. I heard about the Oklahoma shooting incident. I started looking around the web to see what the coverage was like. So I went to Drudge Report, and I saw that it was still on the front. That it's all one page there, but it's still up there as a pretty high headline on Drudge. And I also went to MSNBC, and it wasn't on the first page at all on NBC.com. I had to dig around into another subsection. I had to search for it to find it. And then I did finally find it, and it wasn't. There wasn't much any coverage. There was one article on it over there. You know what I mean? I was like, well, so what is?
Did you go on any Australian websites?
I didn't go to Australian ones. I should have, but I didn't. I was thinking about it. It actually crossed my mind, but I got distracted because there was a lot of talk about the gun control, like another step in gun control, right? The gun control debates coming back again because of it. And so I started looking up stats on gun violence versus gun laws. So if you have a tighter gun law in a state or city or whatever, do you have correlation between that and murder or crime rate? And it was interesting to see how many conflicting reports there were. I Googled it, right? So I was using Google. It's not trying to promote them, so they ain't giving me no money. But so I did a search on it using an internet search engine, and it was literally. Go ahead and try it out right now. If you do it, you'll see that the headlines say the exact opposite of each other.
What am I looking up?
You know,
Gun violence.
yeah, gun violence
Versus
and gun laws, or gun control and gun and violence, or something like that. And it would say, you know, state. Oh, I think I looked up states. What did I look up? Shit, what did I look up? I think I looked up states.
I agree with you,
gun
Troy.
control, and I don't remember what I looked up. Anyway, it said basically the opposite of each other. That states with lax gun control laws have higher murder rates, and then the exact opposite would come up. States with strong gun control have higher murder rates. I'm like, well, how can it be both at the same time? Like, it can't be both at the same
Aren't
time.
there numbers?
There were numbers, but everyone was massaging the numbers in a way that made it so that you had to almost ask, what are the damn numbers? What are they even? The FBI uses a voluntary reporting system, and then the other folks were using the CDC, for instance, uses death certificate reports, which have to be filled out by someone at the morgue. And well, what that person at the morgue determines to be a violent homicide or premeditated murder or some kind of crime is dependent on whatever their opinion of the matter is. And it's not necessarily always absolute, right? And the definitions vary. And so people were citing these as statistical examples of why each side was right. And they were absolutely opposite of each other. I'm like, how can you do that? So then I ended up at factcheck.org, and they just ran this whole thing about people on one side that were saying that lax gun control causes more violence, and they broke that down, and then they flipped it around and did the opposite, and the conclusion is the evidence is inconclusive. There are some correlations, but it's not enough to prove causation. But people are running with it automatically. There's so many other variables at hand that you can't actually simply say
It goes back to what Jeff was
that
saying earlier.
that's the case
They
either
play
way.
emotion. They play on our fears. They know exactly. I mean, when I keep saying this proverbial they, like when who am I referring to when I say they?
The news media is a group of people. Corporations are a group of people. I love when we bring up the proverbial days and we forget that everything out there is some way people. Like, oh, the man got me. Well, no, it's just somebody along the line decided to make something and people follow. I mean, I would agree with the idea of things being inconclusive with regard to gun laws. I mean, you can argue if nobody had a gun, then no gun crimes would occur. True, but then knives would be used.
There's still be some
Yeah.
sort of violence.
Well, and how can you really measure the amount of gun crimes when a lot of the gun violence, I would imagine, results in a missing person? And how many missing people are never found? I mean, it takes a missing person to be found and then found to be shot to be reported as a gun crime. So how can you really get a good gauge of how many gun crimes there are if a lot of these missing people were victims of gun crimes?
That's true.
You know, that's a big variable.
There are a lot of variables. I think at the same time too, like if somebody's crazy and hell bent on doing harm, I don't imagine there's any law out there that can cause them. I think that I found this so weird in my mind, or so mind-boggling to me, was this idea that somebody who was already willing to break the law, that there was some kind of law that we could create to stop them
Yeah,
from
it's
doing
almost
it.
like we forgot murder is a law.
Yeah.
I mean, a murder is illegal,
Yeah.
right? You're not allowed to murder people, right? So whether it's gun violence or poison violence or driving on the sidewalk, that's illegal. So you're already willing to be illegal. So how about this? Let's make a law to stop you from doing other things
Yeah.
around that, you know?
I mean,
Minority Report.
It doesn't make sense. It
Arresting
doesn't,
somebody for the crime they're about to commit.
well, for like future crime.
Yeah.
well, if we had those three chicks that could tell the future, I mean, that would be
Well,
really easy.
We got two
Well,
chicks.
well.
Can you tell the future?
But that's the thing. So that when we were talking about stop and frisk, right? When we sort of, I think we concluded, we had one of our chatters come in and sort of give us a definition of how what was it called? Suspicion.
Yeah, reasonable suspicion was
Yeah,
the phrase.
it was just reasonable suspicion that a crime has happened, or is happening, or is about to happen. Like, so what is about to happen really mean? You know what I mean? So, I mean, are we on our way to future crime there? Like, if we're at that point now, like, what happens in 20 years? If you statistically show that you're doing the things that are statistically shown that people do before they rob a bank, would you now get, like, pulled in for statistically looking like you're casing a
Throwing
bank?
a score is
Or something like
gas
that, you know what I
around
mean?
town. I mean,
Maybe
I would
you
hope
get put on
someone
the
would
list.
stop and frisk you.
Maybe, I mean, because there's enough
Maybe there's a
cameras.
lit-
There's
maybe-
enough
maybe if
cameras
you
around
order-
to do
order
something like
enough
that.
things, if you order enough things, or if you text or
Well,
search
if you
phrases
order
on
enough
Google,
things, if you
for
buy
instance,
enough, like,
if you
what is it,
text
if you
somebody-
buy enough Sudafed at the grocery store, they will.
Yeah, they'll
arrest
think
you for
that
it.
if you
You're making that.
you gotta
Well,
have
I
it.
mean,
You gotta have
people
a. You have to
probably
be. You
are,
have to have
but-
an ID to buy. You have to have an ID to buy a cough syrup. at
Look at
Walgreens.
it, almost no one carries cash anymore, it's all done by electronic transfer of money.
Yeah, I mean, they really everybody has a trail at this point with all the. I mean, just with your phone. I mean, the federal government can access everything on your phone and charge you a tax for it and
Well,
bill you for it, and then maybe if they feel like something you said in a text message could lead to a crime.
Yeah, that's
It
what
has
I mean.
probable cause to
That's
arrest
like
you
that's
for
future
it.
crime right
Has
there.
You know, like if you-
has there ever been a reported case of a text message gone awry that led to an arrest?
No,
I don't-
but,
how- well, how-
but
how
have
you
you
know?
not have you not
How do
seen
you
that?
know?
Have you
How do
not
you know?
seen the AT&T bills that have these federal government
I've seen every
29?
bill I've ever owned.
I mean,
that has
there's
a tax on
there's
it.
federal government taxes on AT&T bills recently.
And on your cigarettes
that
you bought
say
before you came here. I mean,
Federal, it's like I don't
It's
quote
probably
me
some
on this,
kind of
but it's
excise
federal.
tax, man.
It's federal recovery
so-
of information.
Oh, that.
Tax?
Yeah, and it's a 29-cent tax. You haven't noticed tax, right?
Not only are they stealing our information, they're
What's the-
taxing us for it.
Yeah,
What's that rate?
29 cents. You
What's
got
the tax
AT&T?
rate?
Man.
Yeah, AT&T. Who has AT&T?
Man, all right, so.
Anybody? No? Okay.
All right, so
well,
so
you
a
guys
couple
let me
things
know.
along that vein. So I got Troy Alexander here on the chat. He's just ripping up the chat. Thank you very much, Troy. Hey, why don't you call in, man? You got phone, right? Give us a holler, 904-638-5119.
better at typing.
Do it. No, well, he is good at typing, apparently. He said, is it still possible to be a semi-educated man and put faith in, I think he meant to say published statistics?
Well, Troy, I would argue that you could be a fully educated man, and statistics can be used to argue any point. I mean, that's the art of statistics, is that they really truly are an art and not a math. And one can use statistics, one can set up that's a cat attacking the microphone. One can set up questions in a statistical survey, one can lead the statistical results in to prove anything that I want to prove. I mean, I think that's kind of a running joke about statistics, is that I can use statistics to say anything that I want, as long as I...
But statistics never prove anything. I mean, statistics prove that statistically it might have happened. It probably did.
You can
But-
prove with statistical significance, but again, it can be used to prove whatever it was that you wanted.
But I mean, there's always the chance it didn't. There's always the chance that whatever happened, that you think that you might have proven with 99%.
There's a chance I'm not really here right now, but there's a point at
Not
which
long
that chance... There's a point at which that chance that you kind of give up hope that it would occur, and even in statistics, I would argue to Troy's
Great.
point that you
Who
never
coughs
really
after
can
they smoke
trust.
a
It's like
hookah? What is
trusting
it?
an author. You can't trust statistics. Who are they?
So we could.
All right, so hold on. Let me let some people know what's going on. So if you just tuned in, this is the Boyd on Ustream. Thank you very much for tuning in. We got some awesome guests tonight. Some folks are wondering who are those
It's a hookah.
magical voices that we hear. First of all, the magical gurgly voice that you hear is a hookah. Hookah. It is not a bong, and it is filled with.
It is a water pipe.
It is filled. Yeah, sure.
Berry tobacco.
Dude, and it's filled with a tobacco that was apparently approved for sale in my county here that I live in. So just in case. All right, so we've got. I'll just let everyone introduce themselves so that way they can say as much information as they'd like on the podcast.
I'm Shauna.
Awesome, Shauna.
And this is your boy, JP, aka Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Hello.
Jeffrey Beats.
Heidi.
The bro.
TJ checking in.
Yes, everybody's doing their thing. All right, so give us a holler, 904-638-5119. Or join us on the chat stream. Looks like it's on fire tonight. I'm glad people are tuning in and giving their opinions. Some good topics tonight. Jay Smolin said the NSA just admitted yesterday they had spied on domestic email traffic, and I heard they were doing all
See?
like all of that stuff. They've been doing that.
you,
Like
if
didn't
you
know
know
because
somebody
we've
with
been
an
talking about the
70%,
same Walmart.
If you know somebody with an
75%, they
AT&T
said.
phone or a bill, tell them to look at it. Because a lot of people with AT&T bills are getting this federal government
So the government's
retrieval.
only taxing AT&T consumers to pay for
I mean,
it
I don't know if
instead of
I'm not sure. I know I have T-Mobile personally. I haven't received that charge on my bill, but they might not charge.
Well, that's true.
T-Mobile,
T-Mobile sucks at a
you know?
lot of things,
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
so they probably
Yeah.
should charge more.
I gotta tell
Well,
my
I
mom
mean, we don't have to
stop
talk
paying
about
for
that,
cell
you know,
phone.
because I can go all. Trust me, I can go all day about T-Mobile, but
So, you know, part of me wonders, and before I state what I'm going to state, I would have to say that I am on the side of people who don't think that the NSA should be probably doing what they're doing, but I wonder how we, in a modern day age that we are, we put the information out there, we do our internet searches, we provide information to just about any corporation to where we can get a sale, and yet we assume and we hope that that information will be kept private from us. I mean, I've wondered since I've heard about you know, the NSA possibly looking. I mean, this hasn't really been just a news story. I know that we knew that, like, don't say the wrong thing on the telephone, they're listening. I mean, that's been a story that's been around for years.
yeah.
And as long as they aren't, and this is a big if, and I hope that we never move to this, as long as they aren't using their spying program to come about kind of petty crimes and use that as evidence in the court of law, like, if it really is a program that's designed to catch terrorists and they happen to have the information, and, you know, granted, one can say, how can you prove that they won't use it? But, you know, I put things on the internet. I give Walgreens the ability to have my information knowing they're going to sell it to somebody who's going to send me a letter in the mail. You know, it's something that I don't have an expectation for complete and utter privacy in this day and age when I know that I'm carrying a cell phone around on me that can be tracked. I'm talking on a cell phone that I know that can be intercepted. You know, we're doing this freely, and we're expecting to have a level of privacy that used to exist in a day when there weren't electronic devices. And there
Well,
weren't
yeah,
the
like if you don't accept the terms of the app, you can't download it.
Then
You
You
just
don't
have
know
to
what's
look
in
at
the
it.
terms,
When's the
but
last
at the
time?
same time,
Wasn't like
I
that?
think it's still. I don't
Your
think
identity
it's
was
right
anonymous.
that I don't think it's right that there should be any invasion of privacy. I think
But
that's
see,
just
okay,
the
but
government
see, look at
trying to
this,
play
look at
Big
this.
Brother.
If you're on any type of
And
social
what is
media,
eventually-
you're letting everyone know what you're doing
What,
at all
I mean,
times.
what
Same
isn't
thing
private
as letting
when
the
it comes
government watch.
to your phone? I mean, you don't show everybody in the room the text message that you just sent, but
But yet
you
send
expect that
it over
somebody's
an
going to see
airway
it.
that is not secure, that you know that anybody who knows 2 cents with any type of computer processing could intercept.
I think that's a
Be it the
problem.
government or a friend of yours. I
I
mean, you're
disagree.
knowingly doing that, though.
Yeah.
So what expectation of privacy are you asking for?
Yeah, like I said
But you
earlier,
should still expect privacy. Like
I-
you shouldn't expect that somebody's listening
would
to this
expect that we would
conversation.
They might be,
That's not
Nine
tuned
people
in.
are
That's,
They might be.
I mean, you know.
I would expect, my expectation would be that, okay, I know you can listen to this, you can't use it in a court of law as your sole reason for something
Okay.
against
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Beyond
Man,
that, like, I know when I'm talking on the phone, somebody else could be listening. They're probably really bored to be listening to my conversation about whether or not the Gators are going to maintain the top 10 this year after the third week of the season. But chances are,
Probably
some-
not.
Probably just
The Gators don't
Yeah.
play anybody until
Silently
like the
gator
fifth or sixth
chomping
week.
behind these earmuffs in a van.
They don't play
outside
anybody
your
until-
Oh,
house.
listen to this
Next
guy.
season.
This guy's cool.
You never know.
They play Miami in week 2, Greg. You're
Oh,
going down
that's a
if you're
good
still
one.
listening.
But like anytime you share anything electronically,
Yeah,
it's going
feel free
over
to
a
call
wave.
us,
You
yeah.
have to expect that someone is watching you because essentially once you put what you want to put out there, it's out there and everyone's
just-
watching you.
just because you
everyone's
feel
already
like you
watching
should
you.
expect
What
it
privacy
doesn't
are
make
you
it
looking
okay.
for?
The expectation of privacy that we've derived from the past has been in an age where it took weeks for the horse and buggy to drive your mail somewhere. I mean, we're in a day and age that if you want the expectation of privacy, don't use a computer.
Yep, stay out the
Don't
grid.
talk on a telephone. Like, choose
Yeah.
not to use things that you think are a luxury and thus you should have the right to.
Well, it's like there's not even luxuries anymore.
Well,
We feel like it's our
No, there are still
Everybody has
luxuries.
a smartphone.
That's
Everybody
way
has
more luxury,
internet.
man. That's luxurious.
Everybody has
That's
AC.
smartphone
AC
is a
not
luxury,
even a luxury.
is a luxury in
AC
itself.
By the
No,
way-
you're telling me that like, all right,
My brother chimed in via text message stating that they
the
can't
government
use it in
hands
court.
out cell phones for free. How
So,
is it a
and I would
luxury
and I would
anymore?
argue to my brother, I guess not argue, I'd agree with my brother, like, yeah, I don't think that this is something that should be able to be used in court, and if it is being used in that manner, that it is something that should be stopped. So, again, I tried to preface the idea of I'm just maybe arguing a point, but this expectation of privacy that everyone thinks they have, I think is outlandish, but I do agree that, you know, if you're right, if there's some kind of source that you have to their ability to use it in court, they just make up the
Well,
backstory
hold on,
for how
hold
they
on.
got the info.
Hold on,
They
back,
make
back
up
when
the
it was
evidence.
just Ma Bell and we just had, you know, regular telephone lines, like, wouldn't you have an expectation of privacy?
You were calling somebody to say,
Then again,
connect me
you're
to
able
James.
to get warrants. You're able to get warrants to tap a phone.
Yeah.
And if that's admissible, isn't it?
Weren't,
So-
as long as a judge. Now the other issue with the NSA surveillance
So
is
that
that they
you
were
really-
actually, the FIFA court, I believe is what it's called, at FISA, I might be a little bit wrong, I might be using a soccer reference here, but they were misleading the court into how they were going about their surveillance. I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of unethical breaches that have occurred in this, and I think it's something that shouldn't be done in the secrecy of nothing. I guess my argument isn't in favor of the NSA, it's against one who believes that everything you do should be remain private. I mean, I think there is an expectation of privacy, and we talked about this last week, maybe in your house, maybe things that occur in one's house.
But what? How do you define that though? Like, I feel like, you know, my telephone line. Why is that okay?
Exactly.
Because I'm really linking. That's a way for me to communicate from my house to someone else's house, which are two supposed private places. So, you know, if it's okay for a judge to simply rule somehow, you know, based on whatever evidence people are able to find, for me to lose that expectation of privacy.
But I mean, we've given a judge the power to rule that your life should be ended. I mean, the fact that we've given a judge the power to rule that your conversation is no longer private. That's the key, though. Is it a process that's set up to where a judge can faithfully look at it and make that decision based on the Constitution, or is there a kind of a puppet court that's set up to just make things occur because the NSA wants to be able to do it? And I think that's a question that needs to be answered, and I think it's a question that can't be answered unless they ask the questions that are probably difficult to be able to ask.
With the whole question of privacy, I just don't think that we are in the position to even demand the level of privacy that a lot of people are demanding. Because, like, we question, okay, them tapping into our conversation is unethical, but what's the reason that they're tapping into our conversation in the first place?
Well, they
tap
might
into my
be-
conversation if you want. I don't care. I'm talking about sports and whether or not I want to go to Burger
Yeah,
King.
but I don't know.
Right.
But hold on. What if you just dissed the Gators, for instance, and Troy was the NSA staff member or something? You know what I mean?
We got a caller.
All right. Maybe the caller will tell us a
What
little
is
bit
that?
about it.
Maybe
Is that
it's the NSA.
Is it NSA?
Hey,
Word?
thanks for giving us a holla. This is James at the Boyd. Who is this?
Mr. Boyd, and I think I heard Jeff in the background too.
Mr. Riff? Is this
That's
Mr.
right.
Riff?
Oh no, I got it. Are we being graced?
This is Brandon Nelson calling, reporting from Denver, Colorado.
Hell to the yeah. We have a report. That's right. The Boyd has reporters on location in Denver. These guys are giving us a remote report with the brothers Riff. What do we got, sons?
Let me just comment on the show. Number one, I think, I don't know if it was on purpose or not tonight, but I think the no video and all audio, I think that's the way to go. I can
On
actually
purpose.
hear you guys. Go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah. No.
On
Keep
purpose.
going.
Okay. Well, I can actually hear you guys. Jeff is coming through clearly. He's making some very clear Fox News statements. I understand. But I just wanted to call and say I miss all you guys. I keep doing the show. The audio quality is awesome. The video I think is kind of unneeded. You guys are just doing the right thing, and I miss all you guys. That's
miss
really
you
all I
too,
have to
Rick.
say.
Dude, love you guys, man. Are you guys taking care out there?
Yeah, we're gonna be moving into a place soon, and let me just say, anyone who's listening to this who's living in Florida and never seen the mountains, you gotta come out here. You gotta go somewhere where it's like God's country out here. It's something else, man. It's
Fox
beautiful.
uses
The
that,
people here
God's
are
country.
different.
It's
the
amazing
city is
out there, isn't
vibrant.
it?
It's just a different world out here, and I would recommend everyone has to at least come out and visit sometime.
Yeah, man.
Agreed.
Yeah, man.
Good to hear from you, Rick.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Love you guys, man. I miss you.
All right. Well, I love you guys.
Got real emotional.
Well,
boy.
I'm not going to hog up this show. I really like to talk on the NSA and the privacy. I like hearing everyone's opinion. So I think just keep going with that. I hate that I interrupted it, but yeah, have a good time.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for calling. Peace.
All right, brothers. Miss all you guys.
Miss you too, player.
My brother, who apparently can't figure out how to call into the show,
You
doesn't
just-
know how to text into my phone, though, is asking everyone to search NSA DEA cover-up. He didn't give me anything else. He just said search NSA DEA cover-up. So for our 10 listeners,
Awesome.
again, search DEA NSA cover-up, courtesy of Gregory Robert Dietz. Again, Greg, you just from your phone that you've been texting me, you can call the number and you can talk with us.
Yeah, why don't you just do that? Dude, love to hear from you, man. It's been a long time since we talked, Greg. Give us a holler. Dude, so I was gonna.
Washington Post. He was quoting the Washington Post.
All right, so if you're going up, nobody's gonna go like stop and go do this thing. Actually, hold on. Here,
You're talking, we're looking
if
at
you're
it.
watching
The
the podcast here, hold on. Let me put it on for a second. Let me see if I can get this on this screen. I probably can't because I'm having trouble with my. I don't want to get all nerdy with y'all, but I have webcam emulator. Things getting all funky on me. Ugh.
So it looks like what's going on here, if James can figure out how to put
Yeah,
it up
just
on the
you
screen, is
talk
that
about it and I'll try to.
from what I gathered from the headline and maybe a sentence or two, is that the NSA has been giving information to the DEA, which for those of you who aren't aware, is the Drug Enforcement Agency. And I believe that this would be a big ethical issue here, is that the NSA is charged with an arm of protecting us. I mean, you look at it the same idea of the military, and I am one who's willing to give them a little bit of a leash with regard to what they're doing, but if they're bringing in an agency like the DEA who, you know, as Rick pointed out, I might be making some Fox News arguments here and there, I think that the Drug Enforcement Agency has been a big flaw of this country. I mean, we have probably thousands, if not tens and hundreds of thousands of people behind jail who probably don't deserve to be. And to be giving information to an agency who's tasked with kind of making those quote-unquote drug busts and waging this drug war that is, you know, as farce of a war as I've seen in 20 years. It goes up with Jimmy Carter and his Department of Education, but that's a whole other argument. You know, if the NSA is sharing things with the DEA, I think we got a big problem.
Is this an article right
Yeah,
here?
it's the Washington. I mean, it's from the Washington Post. I mean, what one would argue is a reputable media element.
Yeah, but when did it get to the point where the NSA started spying on American citizens? If I'm
When
reading
American
correctly,
citizens
NSA
allowed it
was
to
originally
get to that
set.
point.
The NSA was a military agency that was set up to spy on immigrants, non-U.S. citizens that are coming from China, Russia, from Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, you know, places like that. And all of a sudden, you know.
I mean, for those of you that would argue a pure constitutional approach to things, though, you know, the Constitution does state the protection against enemies, foreign and domestic. So to believe that the NSA would have the power to spy upon us, I mean, one could make an argument for a constitutional approach to that. You know, foreign and domestic.
Well, what
I mean,
constitutes as a domestic reason?
How
You know,
do-
like let's say. I just lost my train of thought.
What? What, Bronus?
Well, I mean, I just listened to something out today that you were saying the point where they were charged with, you know, listening in on immigrants, non-U.S. citizens. I actually heard something today where they were making the argument that the software or the technology they had
Technology.
the technology they had to listen in on people, wasn't sophisticated enough to separate a single person out from the masses. And the reason they were getting all this information on everybody was just because they didn't have the capability to focus in on a particular person.
Yeah.
So they're just saying, oh, this is just extra information that we just decided not to delete. And maybe we're looking in on it a little bit, you know, but, you know, they should be only focusing on certain people if that's what they're charged with, but they say they don't have.
But this all goes back
Yo,
to the topic of
your
future
phone
crime,
number
too.
is a red flag on somebody's computer screen if you text like one of 250 words. That's what I feel. That's what I feel. I know there was that whole thing on the NSA where they were listening to phone, you know, phrases and stuff that you say
What's the
from me to you, you know, that your number pops up on that screen
Yeah, what's the argument though
like that, and somebody has to listen to it.
Yeah, you pop up on
And you
screen-
might not be talking about anything, but just because I said a word doesn't give you the right to charge me money to take all of my paper trail.
Back to
'cause
your-
that's not
back to your
that doesn't
AT&T
belong to the
tax.
DEA. That belongs to me.
Dude, how about this?
I'm
What
really
if you
stuck on the AT&T?
How about if
Dude,
you
I'm not.
how about if you
I'm
say
stuck on the fact that I feel like our government takes advantage of us, and it's because they have
We
all
let 'em.
they have.
We let
It's
'em.
not because they have the right
We let
to,
them.
because we shouldn't expect it,
But
or that we
sometimes
should
what we
expect
supposed to
it.
do.
It's. I just feel like they don't deserve it. You know, the DEA
Wait,
doesn't
they don't deserve what?
The DEA doesn't deserve any information for no reason. They deserve information on a
That's why
person
NSA that's why
that
the
is-
NSA comes
is-
into play.
But
I
if
can
you-
understand that.
I don't
Yeah,
think
man.
that you saying a couple words or a few words or a list of words that sets off some red flag
That's how you say
is
it.
necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's
I agree
there's
with Bronis.
things that
Yeah.
there's reasons we have a government. There's a lot of people out there that want to harm U.S. citizens.
How many people are they catching doing this?
We don't know.
See, that's the
Because
thing.
the things that
I just-
happen,
I guess-
I have
I
a
guess
buddy
what-
that's right now.
But what is
he-
the reason that what is the good reason? What is the reasoning behind it? I don't see it. I
It's
think-
for
I mean,
the
I
protection
remember-
of American
I
citizens.
remember
I have a buddy that just came back from Afghanistan, and he's trying to get a job with the FBI. And he's got an uncle who's a pretty important person in D.C. And he was talking to him, and he was saying that in this certain segment, there's a lot of people that have jobs to protect America from biological, plots and plans through chemical warfare. But that type of stuff is so under the table that we come to the brink of getting chemically attacked all the time. But we don't hear about the people who stop those guys.
Then I'd rather not know.
That's-
I'd rather not
Yeah,
know.
That's an interesting
if we
point.
knew all the attacks that actually happened, I don't think that we'd be concerned about them.
Yeah, it's a funny
listening
thing.
in.
It's a defense.
But if we
that-
knew, we'd be so much more okay with the whole NSA.
But
Would
could
we-
we?
would
But could we
Yeah, if
really?
they
But do we
don't
wanna
say,
know?
"Hey, well, listen,
Yeah.
you, I
Do
would
we
be
want
okay
to
with
know
this,
what's
I
out
wouldn't
there?
Do we want to
what
know?
people
Are we?
are?
At
If
what
you think of
cost
it,
is that? What
if we
cost?
tell them, if we say what we know and we say what was stopped, does that not give the enemy the knowledge of knowing how we stopped it? It's one of those. It's like you look at, it's in movies, it's in the defense now of when people are trying to defend the NSA program. It's like you don't hear about our successes. Our successes are only successes if they're quiet and no one knows about them. It's our failures that you hear about. Which is
totally
entirely true.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think Bronis makes a great point in the idea that we, as a country, have people out there who mean to do us harm, and I think that you have to look at that when you're thinking as to what it is that is okay. And I forget who said it, if it was Franklin or Jefferson or someone of that stature in the day, but to give up liberty for freedom is to lose both, or something of that nature. I'm probably misquoting this, and I think that's another way of looking at it, and it's saying that if I'm willing to give up these things for this idea of being safe,
Sacrificing your
Well,
liberty.
why do these other people want to do
Yeah.
us harm?
Well, what is
Because of
what
our
is it going to
standard
be
of
when
living.
when?
That's it? That's because we're better than them?
But
and
where
they're
where
jealous?
does it stop though? Where is the
Or
line? Like,
because we're
what's-
invading
so
their
if it's
territory to
okay
get
for
their
them,
oil.
so if it's okay for the NSA to take to give in any information about me So who's gonna
Or are you
stop?
giving
Who's gonna
them-
stop?
are you giving
Who's
them a
gonna stop
reason?
them from
That's the
screwing a
thing.
camera on my front door or
Are
in my
we-
bathroom?
Are you
Like,
doing
have you-
something that's gonna
that-
merit that?
You know that episode of South Park where they did the
Look,
God,
about the
the
crapping on
okay,
the toilet
look,
without the
okay,
seatbelt,
okay,
and
look,
then
look,
eventually
look.
they had it to where
Here, look,
you couldn't even
what
use
would
the-
you be doing, TJ? What would you be doing that would merit that kind of
I'm
attention
not-
from the
bro,
NSA?
I'm
Okay.
not. All I'm saying is if it's just acceptable for something as small as a phone record. Now I'm not trying to. I really don't want to get stuck on that, but just something like that because that to me is just on the line of it. The fact that they have information like that, they're just taking information is. I mean, where's the line? Where there's gonna be cameras. I feel like there's gonna be cameras everywhere.
But
There's
see, as
gonna
much
be
as I
meters
don't
to get
want
into your room.
to take to
You
your
gotta
point there,
scan
JP,
your-
you know, what is
do
it
your
that,
blood,
you know,
something.
if you, I think you said something along as if you aren't doing anything, what's the point of them listening? I don't think that's the standard
No,
that
I
we
mean-
set as the country. Like, innocent until proven guilty isn't
Yeah.
the idea of, we can listen to you as long as you're not doing anything wrong. You know, the burden of proof in this country isn't upon you to prove that you're doing nothing wrong, it's upon the government to prove that you are doing something wrong, and it's to prove beyond this idea of a reasonable
Right.
doubt. And so I think when we look at that, and I would agree with the idea that, you know, where are we going? Why are they doing what they're doing? And for one's argument against it to be, well, if you're doing nothing wrong, what is there to worry about? See, I don't think that's a good enough
It's an
argument.
invasion of privacy.
I mean, like what I mean is like what would you be even doing to like get that kind of attention from the
Minding
NSA?
your
Let's
own
say,
business.
Let's
Yeah,
say, let's
who
say
knows,
that they're
man?
not.
You
let's
don't
say they
know.
wouldn't.
Look, all you gotta do is talk shit on the Gators for Troy, right? And he's gonna listen to your ass all night,
First
and
of all,
he'll find some shit.
No one would ever talk
Well.
shit about the Gators because they're awesome.
Yeah.
My wife told me this. It's not true.
Just saying, you know. 'Cause
Well,
we
my
need
question
that.
is, the fact that people want to do us wrong, why, at what point do we look at, well, what are we doing to make them upset, right?
Well, I mean, we're making enough people upset to think that regardless of what we're doing for it, you can't.
Yeah.
There's a misconception that you can change what you're doing to make one not hate you anymore, and I think there's a misconception
Not
as well
hate you?
to think that you can change their way of thinking as well. There's
You have to have a warrant to get a phone tapped. And for court, and the police have to go to a judge and get a warrant. They have to have all kinds of reasoning. They have to prove that you did something wrong.
The NSA
So-
does still get a
so-
warrant through the FISA court. The problem that people have with that is that it's a secret court and that one can't subpoena the documents from it. So I mean, there is still a warrant in most of these searches. I would imagine that some of these, and there were reports of these warrants being given after the fact. They did the searches and said, oh, hey, by the way, do you mind giving us this? But I mean, there is still, and I think people overlook this, there is still some amount of court oversight to it. But at the same time, it's not in the same manner of, you know, the wiretaps that we would be used to.
No, I mean, yeah, but just
There's a lot of good things to think about. I mean, I think Heidi brings up a good point of, you know, can you change someone else's opinion? Can we as a country go into the Middle East and create democracies and change one's opinion on us to keep people from doing harm to us?
Is that really why we're there, though, or are we just there for their oil?
See, there's a mix-up. I don't know. I'll admit that when I was over there, I really felt that, you know, it wasn't about freedom back home. It wasn't about, you know, keeping the terrorists out of their country. It really, like, what were we doing? We were taking control of their electricity. We took control of their water.
How would
we
we-
controlled their cities.
How are they supposed to feel about us when we're just coming in there and telling them, well, you should do this and this way. You guys are doing this all wrong. How would we feel if somebody did that to us? And in the
Well, we're
meantime,
Americans, we
they're
wouldn't
taking
take it
our
sitting
natural
down.
land's resources.
And who can say no? Who can defy a first world power? You know.
I mean, to Heidi, it happened once, and we revolted from the British. But at the same time, too, you know, who are we to come and say what to do? But there were elements that attacked us first. I mean, one could argue that it was brought upon us, and this was our retaliation. And it's very easy to armchair quarterback, be it a football game on Monday morning, or be it a decision by a government to wage war. I mean, I think after the fact you can look and say, well, they told me A, but it wasn't true. But at the time when one is relying on the evidence that is provided to them to make a decision, one has to make those decisions based upon the evidence that's at hand, and I think it's better to have somebody who's able to make those decisions than somebody who's worried about how it might look. And I'm kind of beating around the bush, but I do think we had a president in George W. Bush who was willing to make decisions, and he was willing to look at the evidence and say, this is what I think we should do. Was he wrong? Maybe. I would argue at points it looks like the evidence why we went into Iraq might have been wrong. I would agree with that as anyone who wanted to argue it. But I think we have a president nowadays who looks at things and says, how will people think of this?
Yeah.
How will I be looked upon when I make this decision? And anyone who's had to make a decision in their life, you don't worry about how it's going to look. I think you have to look and say, what is the best decision for me? And as a president, you have to look and say, what is the best decision for my country based on the information that I have in front of me? And that might have been at the time to wage a war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And we can look at the past and we can say, hey, you know, in the future we may need a better CIA who can deliver us more relevant information at the time. But to armchair quarterback and to say that we should have never done that and I saw this coming, I mean, there were a few people, and I would argue that their argument at that point was that war is bad and we should never do it. It wasn't that you were wrong, we shouldn't do this. So the people who even state that, hey, I knew this ahead of time, we should have never done it, I mean, I think they would have said no to World War II as well with their argument at the time. So
That's why.
And one thing I argued back, I mean, I remember being in college having some of these same arguments, was that, you know, we were in a war. I mean, I would argue we probably still are in a war. It was a different war than we're used to seeing, and maybe the policy at the time was to bring that war to a different front. It was a war that was being fought with planes in our country, and if we brought it to them, brought it to a country of Afghanistan and Iraq and brought the war there, we deflected some of the attention off of us. And you know, to us to argue against some of these invasions of privacy, I would also state that since 2001 we've gone on 12 years now, and the only major terrorist attack that has occurred has been from, you know, it was the recent bombing in Boston, which were two people who were pretty well brought up in America from, I believe it was, you know, Chechnya or somewhere in kind of a Russian province, but it wasn't a terrorist attack from the Middle East like we saw 12 years ago. So I would argue that I think it's tough to, you know, we overlook this idea with this invasion of privacy, which again I would argue that is a privacy that we assume is there but really isn't, and we overlook the idea that nothing major has happened here in America in 12 years. I mean, London, Madrid have all seen issues. I mean, but the powers to be to protect us have done their job. And unfortunately for them in making their case for what they're doing, they can't really tell us what they've done. And my personal belief, be it right or wrong, is to defer to them and to say, you know what, you've done well over these 12 years, nothing bad has happened. I'm okay with you listening to me talking to my brother about whether or not Miami or Florida is going to win the game in week 2.
Yeah, but where does it stop though? What if something really big happens now and they're like, oh, well, we didn't catch it because of the wiretaps, or we didn't catch it because of NSA surveillance. We caught it because we happened to be listening to a house that was next door for a drug bust, but we also caught, you know, some of the audio from this other place, and we stopped a terrorist attack. So what we're going to do is now start roaming around neighborhoods and randomly listening to people in their houses just in case.
We cross that bridge when we get there. I think.
Whoa! We cross it. Well, you know what I'm saying? And then what? And then we're going to say, well, we haven't had a terrorist attack in 15 years.
Is it going to stop? Is it going to stop when I have
It's not going to stop.
a little convenience store camera in my kitchen and in the
It
hallway
won't get
to the
to
bathroom?
I'm pretty sure it won't ever get to that point.
How can you be
Everyone's like
pretty
reading
sure of
this
that?
1984 and Ryan, George Orwell bullshit too much. Like, it's not. I don't think it's ever going to get to the point.
Dude,
where we're
how do
gonna
you think 75 years ago?
We already
100,
have cameras
100 years
in our
ago.
houses.
Exactly.
We already have
It could've
cameras. They're already
been
watching us.
That
You decided.
but with an expectation of control and an expectation of privacy.
But
You see what I'm saying? So if they took control of
But
it,
again, what is that expectation of privacy? Is that expectation unfounded?
Well, if it's off and I thought I had control of it, then yeah, that is something that should be absolute.
There are, and I hate,
If I
I
don't
hate to
want-
make light of a situation, but there are 3,000 people who 12 years ago, their invasion of privacy was severely altered in the fact that they are no longer alive.
Wait, which one? What are you talking about?
The people who lost their lives due to the terrorist attacks, there is no quote-unquote invasion of privacy that could have occurred that wouldn't be less harmful to them than dying.
Yeah, but hold on a second. That wasn't the government infringing on their right to privacy. That wasn't an invasion of
But
privacy by the government.
would the government infringing on their right to privacy had been better for them had it stopped the situation?
Well,
that would have occurred?
well, that's a slippery slope, because you could say that, well, the government should just lock us up in padded cells. No, nothing would ever happen to us, ever.
But it's
So that's the best way we
what
should
it
use
is
it.
what it is a what if argument. And I think the argument that you made a few points ago was a what if they find out that they heard something because they overheard when their sound truck was in front of your house and they heard some. I mean, we can what if it all day long and say, well, what if this happens? What should we do?
And if we don't,
But we can.
don't you think we should, when we pass laws and look at the way the government runs the society, we shouldn't ask what if? Because it should apply in all circumstances, and we shouldn't lose freedoms because of a what if. Because what if what if there's zombies that really start running around and whatever? Should we all get inoculated just in case? You know what I'm saying? Just in case, let's start from zombie virus, antivirus. You know what I'm saying?
Troy thinks we're beating this like a dead horse.
Oh shit. Oh, okay. All
Oh,
right.
what?
Survival kits.
What do you want to know, Troy?
I
All
want
right.
to know, does everyone here think that 9/11 was completely just a terrorist?
Nope.
Nobody thinks that it was a
Don't
government
get-
conspiracy?
Don't get my brother
I don't-
going.
I don't
If he's
believe-
I want to get this going.
What I
I'm
know-
the
I
zeitgeist.
know
You're
what
the
it is.
zeitgeist.
What I know of that day is that 3,000.
So you're one of those people that think
Actually,
Osama bin Laden's sitting in a mansion somewhere, counting a check from George W.
I know his family
Haven't
was
you
living in
seen?
Miami.
Haven't you seen Iron Man 3?
All the evidence about how they
I-
actually, sent off
I-
demolition bombs. that
I am
destroyed
actually
the
more
towers.
interested in the.
Those buildings are structured to withstand plane crash.
I'm more interested
The
in
way
the.
that they're designed, those tall buildings like that, they're basically a building inside of another building. So that way, if something hits it hard, at the top, it still has foundation.
But those
But
See,
things
the
are
World Trade
down.
Center was built before they even started doing shit like that.
I
It wasn't
am.
built
I've
before
been
planes.
looking
Yeah,
at
you've been
this
listening
whole.
to that Dr. Deagle shit, man.
Yeah, listen, don't go on YouTube. They can make really good things.
Don't listen to that loose change bullshit. I've watched
All
right, all right.
I don't know.
But I want
I
to hear what Bronis has to
All right,
say.
let's let Bronis-
I wasn't really into the whole 9/11 conspiracy.
If it was a conspiracy, if it was a bad joke, it was a really bad joke. You know?
I don't think it's bad.
If it was supposed to put us on
Let's
our
listen to
toes.
what Bronis has to say.
So I was watching this documentary of this theory about dustification. Have any of you heard about the dustification theory?
Yeah, I heard something about that.
Well, it brings up a good point in that basically the theory goes like there's some microwave technology the government was beaming at these buildings that made them more subject to collapsing
So
when they were hit.
Weaken the density.
Giving
Right.
these guys thoughts,
Now,
airwaves.
I don't know about that whole sci-fi technology stuff, but what it did bring up a good point was that they had so many people were jumping from the buildings to their death. And when you jump from the building, it's certain death. And there were phone calls of the people from inside the building who were explaining that they were hot. They were so hot, and they were burning from inside. And I'm just wondering, at what point are you looking down and you decide to jump?
Have you ever
and
held
not-
your hand over a candle?
I have.
It burns after a while, right? And you're nowhere near
And when
the
you're
flame.
on fire, you're gonna jump.
Heat rises. A plane had blown up below them. To think that they were hot because there was a fire that was encompassing a steel and concrete building.
And this is jet fuel.
Yeah. I mean, to think that they were hot, I mean, again, heat goes beyond where the flame is. I would imagine that there was some amount of heat there, and I'd imagine they realized I can't get below it.
I just
But-
think that the ability to decide to jump is a trait that wouldn't be very common in a lot of people.
But when you're in a situation like that, and I can attest to this. I mean, maybe not like jumping out of a building, but when you're in a traumatic situation, you're not thinking. You are not thinking. People will go out of their fucking minds. They will do the craziest shit you would never ever think they would do. Jumping out of a building because a plane just jumped or crashed into the building that you're in, I'd be going ape shit, knowing that knowing that where they hit and feeling the whole building shake. What am I supposed to do? And in the panic, I end up doing something stupid. You know, I'm not
I don't
thinking.
think any of us can pretend to think what we do in that situation. So, and I don't know that we can all hypothesize, but I don't think.
I bought into that case. I still kind of think that it was a conspiracy. I do believe that.
I agree.
But you can go back to Pearl Harbor. That maybe this was a planned attack. The government knew about it, and it's their bad for not trying to stop it. You know, but I'm not going to say that it's a conspiracy. I'm not saying you're right, and I'm not saying that I'm right.
I
You know,
think
I'm
the
just saying
government
that
was involved.
They are. Everything that major big thing that happens in this country that ends up in the news is somehow related to the government. I wouldn't doubt it.
It wouldn't be
They
the
did
first
same
time
thing
the government
with
did
Pearl
something
Harbor.
against its own country to get us on
But,
board.
but do you also see this pattern that's going to? We pissed off the Japanese, and what do? They attacked us. We pissed off the Afghanis. We pissed off all the Muslims, and we know that's what happens. You know, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna say that because this happened, it's a conspiracy. That the government caused it. The government may have known about it, but they didn't take maybe they did take the necessary precautions, but it didn't go the way they planned it. You know, maybe there was contingency plans put into place, and yada yada yada. You know, maybe I don't know. There's a whole bunch of possibilities out there. You know, is it a conspiracy? I don't think so. Could it be? Maybe. You know, but I just know what makes sense to me.
I mean, how are you going to know? How does anyone
Exactly.
going to know any of this stuff, really?
You're not.
You can read all
Can't
sorts of
know.
shit. What are you going to do, look at it?
It's
But,
against.
You
it's
don't
but
know.
it brings up a
You don't know.
question. You
It's like
question,
what-
you
Here's-
question
here's
your own
what
government.
religious
Here's how I
sect
feel
are you
about
a
it.
part
Here's
of?
how I feel about it.
That the
Make-
whole
like,
government's actually
anymore?
ran by
What are you
these
gonna
rich
do?
families.
Oh,
This is
That's
how I
Build
feel
a
about
road,
it.
you don't know. That's
Someone
the
took
thing.
the time to fold a dollar bill and say, hey, look, it's the
No.
World Trade Center that's blowing up. And on the back side, hey, look, it's the Pentagon and it's on fire. That's how I feel about this conspiracy thing. You can turn anything into a conspiracy.
I watched the movie The Matrix,
And
and
they
I
do
wondered
this for
if I was
everything.
really,
Yeah, you know, am I really
was
jacked
I
in?
really there? And I mean, there's a lot of things in life that can make you
But it's
wonder.
worth
Is
worth
this bottle just all
considering the
ones and
question.
zeros right now?
All I know is I was in.
There was another
I
World
was
Trade,
in
the other
English-
Trade Center building that just, no
Building
plane hit it
7.
and it collapsed.
Building
Two
7.
buildings 8 times the size of that
The
fell
shock
within
wave.
one city block of it. To
And
think
it's-
that it might have started some kind of fire that would have caused a fall. Like,
I don't know how many times you guys felt explosions, but let me tell you, like
Yeah.
if you were 2 planes, airline passenger planes, jet fuel, there's gonna be some sort of concussion wave, and it's going to be strong enough to spread out and weaken some of those buildings. Some of those buildings were built
And specifically
in
collapsed
the
during those
1950s,
times.
when they didn't even plan on building tall skyscrapers and never imagined that anyone would be out of their freaking minds to crash planes into these buildings.
What about the explosions in the lower floors?
Well, who's to say that they didn't plan ahead and planted them there?
No.
Oh, there's another conspiracy.
First of all, it's not the planes crashing into the building that they're saying collapsed the buildings. It's the collapsing of the trade centers into the ground that shook the buildings down. That's what they're saying happened.
What has anyone studied? I've never seen
The
that. I've
seismic
never
readings?
seen.
You need to watch
I've
it.
never seen the foundation or the blueprints
You need to watch
of the
it.
World Trade Center. So I'm not an architect. I'm not an architect. I don't know what caused that, and I'm pretty sure the 9/11 Commission even they spent how many years on that shit? Like almost a span.
Trust me, they
Almost
thought
10
about
years?
a plane crashing into the building. They thought about it.
Who, when they designed their
Who's
their
to
building?
say?
Those buildings are built
I
like
would,
that.
I would
Buildings.
actually agree here because in at some point in the past, the Empire State Building had actually been run into by a plane on accident.
Yeah, but they're not looking at jumbo jets.
Yeah.
They weren't
They're looking at
they were
passenger
not looking at
planes and
jumbo
little things
jets.
like that, man.
They're
not-
like little
or
Cessna planes,
helicopter,
propeller
yeah,
planes,
if a police helicopter
low
hit it or
impact
something.
planes, not ones filled
Dude,
with
I don't know, man.
highly
'Cause, like, how are
explosive
you
jet
gonna
fuel.
know? How are you gonna really know? Anyway,
Well,
we
they're
can
supposed
talk
to
about
be
this
raised.
all day long. How are you gonna know? That's my problem. How does anyone know anything? But and that's the thing. I think yeah. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that the government would go through that. Now other people don't have a hard time
By the
believing
way,
that.
to
And
think,
so
to think that like the amount of secrets that make their way out of the government, and this one would have been kept for 12 years.
well, yeah, but who would want to admit to knowing that?
Well, I mean, they're keeping
That
law
would be very, very
You know what I
damaging
mean?
to anyone's career.
Nobody would want to admit that they knew this whole
But I'm
time.
not saying they admit they knew it, but it's like the one person that finds out. Like, has the government been able to keep any kind of secret?
Oh yeah, no doubt, no
The
doubt.
NSA
I mean,
couldn't keep a secret that they were spying. Like, they're the freaking NSA.
And the
government
government
has
couldn't
kept
keep the
many
secret with
Actually, they've been
Bradley
keeping it
Manning.
until Homeboy leaked it, and then
Yeah,
it blew
you
up
know.
the whole thing.
So no
you
one,
think
it just
Homeboy
proves that
wouldn't
no
have
one
known
is
about
safe.
that one too and included it in its shit?
watches
from-
the
Who
Watchmen.
knows? We probably would
You
have.
know,
I don't know.
it's like who
I don't
watches
know.
The Watchmen. You know, that's another good topic. What is everyone? What do our
If we're changing-
listeners?
If we're changing topics, we're going to should college athletes be paid?
Oh yeah, I did throw that on. I don't want to
That
be
was
false
on the
advertising. That
Facebook.
was on the Facebook flyer thing. That's the,
I
about
think-
college
I
athletes
think
being
it's
paid.
fair.
Oh yeah,
I think it's
College
fair.
athletes.
I don't think it's fair that the NCAA and the schools make all this money off of the products being sold that promote those players, but the players aren't allowed to reap any of the benefits.
The schools,
The players aren't even allowed to have jobs, most of them.
the schools go out of their way to recruit these kids from young ages, and they sell them. They sell the kids through jerseys, through
Yeah.
autographs, through all that stuff. They make all of the profit.
I actually heard on this topic, that I'm a college football fan myself. It's like it's a great business model to have. You have this multi-million-dollar business, and you don't have to pay the workers. You know, like I think that there should be some kind of benefit towards the players that, you know, if they print that number on that jersey and I go to the store and buy it, I wouldn't have a problem with half of that money going to that player.
Yeah,
Why
but
does
like
the
don't
NCAA
they get money off of donations and shit?
No,
Like,
the players themselves
yeah.
don't receive anything.
The players aren't allowed to.
They're
be
not
paid.
allowed
I mean,
to.
it-
They're
but
not
doesn't
allowed
something
to make
happen
money
with
off
through
of
college?
any of it.
I'm pretty sure everything's provided to them, right?
Wasn't the NCAA saying something about not making money off franchise or not making products and stuff like that? What was
So,
that recent
the-
thing that just happened?
I think the NCAA probably argues that they sell the idea or the brand, but NCAA.com, there was an ESPN article, and it was like search Johnny Manziel on it, and it popped up the number 2 Texas A&M jersey.
Mhm.
And at the college football shop, if you search, Javarni's Clowney or from South Carolina,
Davian Clowney.
his jersey pulled up, and many of the marquee names, their name would be associated with their jersey. And then, of course, immediately upon that article being written, the NCAA got rid of that. But there's other instances that I've read about. I mean, there was back in the early '90s when Chris Webber was at Michigan. He would walk by stores and see his jersey hanging that people were paying $50 or $60 for, and he was struggling to be able to pay for his next meal.
Right.
And I think the argument here is I think most people will look at this argument and say, yeah, I think they should be paid. I think the next sentence is the hardest part of this debate.
How much?
How?
Oh yeah.
To by what? Like, yes, they should be paid.
What should they look at?
Continue that thought.
I mean, professional athletes get paid, I'm sure, by a percentage, or they get, Nike. If LeBron James signs a new contract with Nike, they're gonna give him this much up front, and they're gonna pay him for how much it sells. So why not do that if Robert Griffin III's jersey sells for $100 in an NFL shop? why wouldn't Johnny Manziel sell for $100 and he see at least, you know, that may be between him and and Nike, or him and, you know, I don't know, maybe whoever makes their jerseys. I think Nike has most
The
of it
argument
cornered
here
now.
is this idea of amateur athletics. So, you know, it's really easy when we look at college football or even college basketball. I mean, I know the tournament derives billions to the NCAA, but, you know, as a former college athlete myself, what happens to the Division III soccer player? You know, what are they entitled to? No one's buying their jersey. I mean, their parents bought their jersey, which, you know, so how does that portray? Is it just that the major sports, they should be paid, the major schools, if you're a baseball player at the University of Texas, if you're a college football player in the SEC, what happens if you're a college football player in the Atlantic 10 and you play for Hofstra or you play for a smaller school in the Northeast? I mean,
Well,
that's the question is what is that next sentence? What is their next 2 or 3 sentences?
Well, I think it should be individualized, because that player may not sell. Nike may not,
Is that
because
not-
that person paid for their jersey.
Is that not professional athletics at that point, though?
Yeah, it would be. And I think that
Well, then-
a big thing about college football is that a lot of people associate college football with like fundamentals. They don't branch into NFL just because they like it. They like the competitiveness. They like the
Yeah.
team aspect of college
Yeah.
football. And when you bring in one player being the rock star, you know, making tons of money, or 2 or 3, like a clique of players making all this money, that would separate the team. There would be some rift in the team aspect of college football that you can't undo.
I don't know that that's
Are
fair
they
to
not
say,
getting
though.
any type of benefit while being a college athlete?
I mean, I think if they can
like,
commercialize
no
it, what's really the difference between professional athletics and collegiate athletics? If the only thing, I mean, if you look at it, they sell in the store the same. You know, they go for around the same price.
I can probably answer this question as having done both.
Why, what's the difference then? Why shouldn't I get paid and the only reason you tell me I
That's
can't
the
get paid is
difference
because
right
I'm
there.
in school? If
That's
I was
the
going to be a
difference.
doctor and I was working part-time in the ER, I wouldn't be getting paid because I was a student?
So that's the difference right there, is the I that you just mentioned. As one who was an amateur and professional athlete in the sport of baseball, my time in college was one of the team. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't trade it for any money in the world. The time that I got to spend with my teammates. I made some good friends in the professional ranks, but it was definitely much more of an I atmosphere. When was I going to be promoted to the next level? When was I going to make more money? And the atmosphere there that occurs is completely different, and is one that does set amateur and professional sports apart.
Yeah, the
Now, I
passion
think
behind it.
there's a few arguments here, and the first one would be an answer to your question, JP, as to is there anything that they get paid? You know, part of the argument against college athletes being paid is that they say, you know, you receive scholarship. You receive a scholarship, you get your education for free that other students are paying for.
Well, the education, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the education is already considered separate from the Division I college. You have players that have already graduated that are still playing.
And they'll receive
football.
scholarship for graduate degrees as well. They have to maintain their affiliation with the school. They still have to be a student. So, but I don't think that just because you're getting an education for free is enough of payment for
No.
a situation where, I mean, my brother brought this up to me last week, if he's still listening, is one of the 4 viewers that are still here. You know, Chris Webber at the time, and there's many other athletes that come from a situation where they aren't able to purchase their own jersey. They don't have enough money to purchase their own jersey from
Right.
the store, and yet they're seeing nothing from it. I think the next sentence is a very tough one to have, and I think it's a debate of, you know, you know it when you see it. You look at a situation and say, well, Chris Webber was having trouble paying for his next dinner. Well, that's a problem. That shouldn't occur with a billion-dollar industry. But then you look at a guy like Johnny Manziel, who comes from a family who's very affluent, and he has no issue doing it, but he maybe or maybe not thought it was okay to make some money signing some autographs. And you look and you say, well, maybe that isn't okay for amateur sports. And I think it's a case-by-case basis, but I think then you look at it and you say, is it okay for a SEC college football player to get paid a decent amount of money, but the lacrosse player at the University of Iowa who is just really there for the nature of amateur sports, are they deserving of anything?
Well, how about this? So Grundlepith on the chat stream here is asking, it doesn't make a difference if it's a state university.
Private versus state. I mean, again, what
Well,
kind of
that's-
budget are they looking at? I mean, a lot of the money that comes into the NCAA is used to build the facilities that the athletes have the opportunity to use. And there's a lot of perks that come for it, and I think that there's a lot of great arguments against it, or for, I guess, for the idea of being paid, and you can find individual cases that make it, but I think if you lose that idea of amateur sports, I think you lose what people love and look at that purity that is college football. I think it's why I'm excited for a week from now when the season opens.
I agree.
And there's some purity to looking at who wins the national championship. You don't look at Alabama, who's won 3 of the last 4 national championships, and say, well,
They got the money.
they paid everyone, they have all the money, and they bought it. You know, hey, they recruited
No,
all
they had the
players.
money to recruit. They definitely had the money to
I mean,
recruit.
but
But I mean, I agree, because you shouldn't just I don't think there should be money involved, though. I think that because there is an industry behind it and that there is money being made off of their names, that yeah, if you make money off of my name, I feel like I should receive that. And even to the point where they can't sell their own stuff. You know, because there's fans that want to buy his jersey from him that I'm sure would be willing to pay him a lot of money. No, most, like he said, that's not uncommon. That's really
Like
not
they're not-
uncommon.
they're like as
It's
far
not
as
uncommon
like-
for a college student to be broke. It's not uncommon
I know
for.
that, but like because of their status as a college athlete, they are getting.
I mean, they're not allowed. Like, a lot of like, they're not allowed to have jobs. They can't.
What I'm saying is, are they allotted anything as far as like
So
living
what you get,
conditions?
what you get is, you know, per a scholarship, you'll receive things like room and board, and you might not have the educational expenses and a meal plan. But as an offensive lineman who might need a little bit more than the meal plan that's allotted for you,
Yeah.
you have to go and you have to figure those parts out.
Figure out how to get your more food
Yeah.
than the school's offering.
You know, I remember on baseball trips we were allotted a per diem. We would receive, you know, $35 a day for meals, and that would be our raise money.
So you guys are
You know,
raising some
when we were traveling on behalf of the team, we would receive money for meals because we weren't able to
Yeah.
eat our allotment of meals at the campus. But there was no incentive to doing it. You didn't sign up to play sports for a paycheck.
Well, and so okay, let's say if you did say that they should receive some kind of remuneration for the work they do and the money that, or some portion of the money that they make for the college, how would they earn their money? Are they going to earn their money from some kind of college stipend or salary, or is it going to be royalties only? And what if you're not the star player? And then what are you going to do? You know, now it becomes this sort of split in the team, like you were saying, like Dietz was mentioning, you know, because it's totally different. Now it becomes professional sports. And then also, Grumblepith on the chat stream here asked a couple questions, you know, so he asked, did it make a difference if it's a state university, but then also took it further, should Florida taxpayers, for instance, pay players that, you know, if we do this thing where we introduce, you know, compensation for money that is generated off of that, you know, should taxpayer money be included in that if we did that? And then, you know, and then how would you even set that up?
Well, hearing that, you know, I think maybe we shouldn't pay them, but we should allow them, or the school should allow them at least to get some sort of like part-time job for supplemental income.
They do.
I don't think
if they have the time for it.
No.
But I
you
don't
are.
see I don't see
You're
the
able
issue
to-
in signing your name on a jersey or signing your name on anything. If that's your signature, and you're telling me that kid, if that kid can sell his jersey for $1,000 by signing it, why shouldn't he be able to do that? Because there's
So
a
you
player
said
on the
not to do
team
that?
that wouldn't be
No.
able to sell his jersey
Because
for that much.
That again is
That's his work and
professionalization
his
of it.
effort and his time and his focus, because he took that to the professional level and he stood out above every
Yeah,
other
everyone
athlete
else
on
could
that
do
field.
that.
Would you really be
He
part
took
of the
it.
team
He
if you're
took
the
it.
one
He
getting
still
paid
took
for
it to
that?
the amateur level, though. It's not the professional level.
Well, we know these
Well,
guys. We
hold
know
on.
these guys are playing on the NFL.
Isn't that a
from
free
day one.
market? Isn't
I mean,
that-
there's players that, like Jadeveon Clowney, you mentioned earlier, that stated that he was going to sit out the entire next season he would be ready for the NFL draft.
Well-
he's not thinking like it's
So-
all
Well,
about
regar-
professionalism at the
regardless
end of the
of,
day.
like, regardless of your
They're
level.
going to college to be football players, not all of them now, but the ones that are bringing in the money, they're going
So-
for that as a
so
profession.
one of the
So
arguments
I
is
just, I don't
that,
see.
you know,
I
when
think
do
they should be paid. I think that should be something that's a good question. Where the money would come from and how. That's a good question, but I think that's for the NCAA that they need to have that discussion.
Do you think they have the answers? NCAA's gonna have the answer to that?
I mean, I think that they can devise an
part of-
answer
they're
to
part
that.
of-
You brought
possible
up a
problem.
good point.
I mean,
You
yeah.
mentioned the free market there. You kind of snuck it in, but for anyone who didn't hear it.
Well, that was for you specifically, because I know
Yeah.
you are a proponent of free market principles, so.
So there is a little bit of free market interest. The quarterback, I can't name, I don't know him off. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater, if I'm right, the quarterback for Louisville.
The one that slaughtered Florida.
Yeah, don't bring that up, please. He's able to, and it's not against NCAA policies for him to take out an insurance policy on himself. Lloyd's of London actually insured the likes of Robert Griffin, where Teddy Bridgewater has an insurance policy for the likes of $5 or $10 million, to where if something were to happen to him with injury and he can't perform a professional career, he will receive an insurance payout. Things like that are available. There are free market ideas in that idea that if you yourself are worth it, you can take out an insurance policy.
Well, no, hold on. But then himself and his signature is worth a certain amount.
In the
So
event of
why
injury.
can he not?
In the event of injury, it is worth that amount.
Well, why does it have to be in the event of injury?
Insurance
Why?
payments don't pay out if something
Exactly.
bad does
So
happen.
what? So what? Who's to say you are already? You're selling short. You're locking a game. That's
You are.
bullshit. That's
No,
bullshit to say that you can lock a game, but you can't make a game
All
now.
the NCAA cares about is, are you being paid while you are an athlete?
Yeah, but you
NCAA.
are now getting paid later for the work that you're doing now.
I personally am an issue with this. I had to give up my fourth and senior year of playing baseball in order to pursue a baseball career professionally. As much as I would have loved to have played that fourth year with my friends and the relationships that I built in college, in order to pursue a career professionally, I had to no longer play that fourth year, and I don't get it back. I don't now. I'm done playing.
Yeah, but
professionally, I can't go back
you
and do
didn't
it. And I
have
made
to.
that.
That was a choice you made.
Agreed, and
Right.
it's a choice that one makes to go to college, and it's a choice that one makes to decide when to pursue the professional career. The Jadeveon Clowney, possibly could have gone pro last year. You had the likes of the quarterback at Georgia could have gone pro. AJ McCarron could have gone pro. I mean, they make these decisions, and to think that money is the only issue would argue that no one would ever make the decision to stay in college.
Well, no, money isn't the only issue, but the question is, should they get paid? And
The question isn't should, I think the question is what.
Well-
And I think the NCAA should just have a little bit more of a realistic view to what they do. And I think when you look at a case where you look at somebody who is taking some money on the side just because he can, versus somebody who's taking money on the side because they need the money to help their family, or they need the money just so that they can go out and enjoy an evening, or go out and eat a meal that isn't at the cafeteria. I think that there should be some kind of level, and I know it gets very political in the world, where you're going to means test college athletes,
Well-
and this person's rich and this person isn't, thus this person decides
guess-
it.
No, that would be bad.
I
To
guess-
me,
well,
that's just bad. Right?
But what about the money that is being made off of their names? What about all of that money?
Where's most of it being
Where does
used,
that
though?
go?
But where is most of it being used?
Where does the money?
I don't know.
Like I'm
If
saying,
it's-
like
what if it's going to
Robert,
college?
if
State-of-the-art
LeBron
athletic
James
facility.
sells a jersey and he makes that I'm not sure how it works, like I said, but I'm sure he makes a percentage of the sales. That would be, off the top of my head, that would be the most logical way to go about that. Just to get paid if you're selling, thousands of products and all that stuff. I think they should get
And then,
paid.
is that fair
I
that
think they
that
should
one
get paid for
person, a
stuff
star
like that.
athlete, is it fair for them to have to support the state of the art, all that stuff? You know what I mean? They're the ones that's doing all this stuff. Like so.
You act as if there's no benefit for them. I mean, like being.
Well, I mean,
Well,
sure,
there's
it's a
no,
benefit.
but
I'm
there's
saying, like,
benefit. But if you
who's
can't
really
afford
winning?
to eat and somebody's walking down the street wearing your jersey,
Again, I would
The
argue, I would
university
agree
is
with
willing-
that
is
idea.
able
But
to-
there is a
like,
point where you see it and you understand that.
I feel
hey,
like
there
if
should
you can
be-
make there should be no person that gets paid for what you do, But if they do get paid for what you do, why are they getting paid and you aren't?
Right.
There's
But that
institution.
extrapolates itself out into like expensive coaches that they can get and all of these things that they're able to get, that they're able to
I
buy
just don't-
and afford.
yeah, the
And
coaches
so
get
they're-
paid. What about-
they
the
are
coaches get paid by
able
the
to
school.
get paid and they're able to bring
Yeah.
themselves up because a
What
coach
about-
for
but isn't that
an
what
amazing
coach-
school is not going to be getting
entertainment?
paid chump
What
change.
about like Little League Baseball? I mean, they're on TV, they're playing right now, there's ad revenue that's being determined for, ESPN, and those kids paid to join the league if they wanted. I mean, I think we look at, and the world has so caught up in this idea of
Well,
monetary.
hold on a sec. So hold on. If there's this one dude, this one kid, that's an amazing little league player, should he be able to make money off of his signature?
No,
No, he's not old enough.
he's not allowed to.
He can't sell his
He would-
signature.
he would-
He can't sign autographs.
If you
And-
make money off of a sport that you wish to play in the NCAA, you lose your eligibility. So in instances, and it's sport by sport, so there are many of professional baseball players who have left in high school. When their baseball career ends, they actually go back and will play football. Chris Winkie, many other quarterbacks are able to play a sport other than the one they played professionally. Though my brother, I wonder if he's still listening, told me the other day
He
about...
just posted.
Uh-oh.
Said use video games as a platform for payment.
He's video... Uh-oh.
I mean, you could do that.
There's many a,
I mean,
there's
things
many
are
a platform
crazy.
for
Payment?
payment. I get that. I just wonder
Dude.
at what
Yeah,
point.
everyone's
at what
trying
point
to take my
can-
shit, man. Everybody's trying to take my money. You know
At what
I'm saying?
point is it okay to be paid and isn't? I mean, I don't think we need a 18-year-old college football player like signing the biggest contract as possible with the University of Oregon because they have X amount of money. Like, I don't think that the recruiting battle needs to be what contract can be offered to a 17 or 18-year-old. Or do we sign him at the age of 12 so that we get him before anybody understands it? Now, I think while you're there, you should look at, what kind of revenues are derived off of your talents and take a look at maybe the NCAA being able to act humanely and say, hey, this person isn't trying to take advantage of the system. This person is just trying to have some food and enjoy themselves like anybody else would in college. Why shouldn't we allow them to do that?
I mean, just in my opinion, I don't think. I mean, they
I mean,
should
in
get
a
paid to an
sense, that's
extent that they
slavery.
can actually pay for food when they're not traveling.
It's not slavery. Let's not kid ourselves.
That's
Let's
working
not
for
throw-
free. It's
It's not-
working for
but it's
free.
what- if they
Well,
didn't
you're going
want
to
to do
school
that, they
for
wouldn't
free,
have
though,
chosen
right?
that.
You're also
You're
going to school.
for free,
No
but
one's
you're
also
also
paying-
paying play football.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is by me scoring,
No one's
by
forcing
me,
them to
by
play
me,
basketball.
I think it's
okay,
more-
but by me,
more like
by,
indentured
but by,
servitude,
but by
really.
me scoring all those points and getting you to that level, you know how many people got paid for that? Like Alabama, they want the SEC in general has pretty much taken control of the national championship
Damn straight.
aspect, but I look at Alabama. Alabama's got the best recruiting in the nation because they've
Don't
won.
compare it to slavery.
And they got
don't
the money.
compare it to a
I'm not-
population.
Well,
I'm not necessarily
yeah, I mean,
comparing
that's
the
true.
impact, but I'm saying if you look at it, like they're working for free. If you're not
I mean,
paying
there
them,
is like-
you're
They're not working
Their
for
job,
That's
their
like-
job,
that's-
when they're
that's
working
cool.
for on
That's-
their
that's-
scholarship
they're like
is to be
puppies.
Well,
not
hold on,
only
hold
an
on.
athlete but a student.
But
They have an obligation.
how many?
to
How about
scholastic-
how someone comes in on a different scholarship? What revenue are they generating? Why is it their
With
responsibility to come in on
football-
an athletic scholarship and have to pay that shit back through sweat
If we
labor?
start paying, if we start
And
paying,
like
them,
someone
start
comes
paying
in
them.
on a
Physicists.
philosophy or whatever,
I think
or like
philosophy,
a cello playing
scholarship,
fucking
we have to pay
scholarship.
them too,
Nobody has
because they
to
all
like
fall under the range of
bring money in
entertainment.
for that, do they?
Yeah, we forget that like one is choosing to play this sport. Like, and I agree. Again, there's a lot of great cases that can be made about the Chris Webbers of the world and I think that there should be a system set up to where that doesn't happen. And I think there should be a more humane aspect to the NCAA. But at the same time, like one chooses to play the sport of football, one chooses to play basketball, one chooses to play baseball, just like one chooses to play the cello and chooses to become a doctor and devote their time to that. And the same reason that while I'm devoting my time to become a doctor or a lawyer in school, I'm not expected to be paid then, because I'm expected that if I do what I should and show my merits of that during my time in college, that I should become a doctor and be paid for it later as a professional. Our sport's not the same thing. Our sport's not the same idea that do I show my merits during that time in college And my major per se, you look at someone like Deion Sanders, whose major really was sports. I choose that to be my major. That's where I provide my focus. If I'm good enough at it, I can make a profession out of it afterwards, which is the idea of college.
Yeah, but they're
Right,
making a
but
profession out of you, though.
there's still a revenue being
is
made
Harvard.
before you're allowed to reap the benefits of that revenue. There's a revenue being made
College-
off of you.
college is an
Maybe you
institution
don't.
where-
You might not feel that way because you weren't, one of these guys. But
College makes
I
revenue
feel like
off me paying them to go there in the first place. Like,
Take a sec.
there are people that pay $50,000
But the school has nothing to do with the
school.
money that they're making off of the advertisement. Like Nike and all these companies are what's making that money, and the NCAA makes a part of that too, because it's all under the NCAA. That's their contract with these sports places, and I just think, I completely understand what you're saying. Like that's what you're working towards. Yes, you are in college, you're in school, and you are given that, and that's not something that's given to
So as
everybody.
an example to the amount of money, I remember while I was at college, the creator of Jägermeister provided a donation of $100 million to build a new biology center. As a student, one who might have been studying the field of biology, could one not argue that, hey, because we are doing great things, we have caused this donation in the amount of $100 million, shouldn't I see part of that? The argument at that point would be like, no, the donation was meant solely for the purpose of building this new facility, which was then built for the betterment of education. So couldn't the money that's raised to the NCAA be used for, and is used for, the betterment of the facilities that, the revenues generated by football have allowed the women's soccer team and the women's lacrosse team and the men's baseball team to have better facilities.
I don't think the jersey sales or the video games or any of that.
I mean, you're
no.
selling a number 2 jersey for Texas A&M. Now, yes, that's Johnny Manziel's jersey right now, but it was also somebody else's jersey 5 years ago. How does that person not have the right to claim? There's no name on the back of it.
But he has
I can
that
claim
is
they
number.
get a
There's
percentage
nobody
of that
else on
too.
that team.
But there was at the
With that
time. I
number?
was number 2 10 years ago. How is that? How do I know that's not me? There's no name on it. Now, yes, NCAA.com, you search Johnny Manziel as the number 2 in Texas A&M. There's some hypocritical nature to the NCAA, but at the same time, I just wonder, how do the dozens of players since the advent of football at Texas A&M not have claim to the same jersey number that they wore at the time because someone is currently wearing it for a period of 3 years? How does the one who wears number 2 after him not have claim to it as well? How do I know the year after Johnny Manziel goes pro, when somebody buys a number 2 jersey, is that because of Johnny Manziel or is it because the new freshman who's
Because
wearing
if
it?
you go on the website and type in Johnny
Not anymore.
Manziel's name, that
They got rid
jersey
of it.
comes up.
They got rid of it. No,
Well-
that feature no longer works. And I agree. Again, there's some hypocritical nature to it. And
I mean,
do
I just
believe-
think but I still think that's just tiptoeing around the fact that they're putting in the work and not getting
But
any of
again,
the
and
benefits,
that's the argument
except
that's
for the
made.
fact that they're going to school. But they didn't have to sell a bunch of jerseys to go to school. They got a scholarship to that school because they played football, and they got all these numbers coming in because of the way they play football.
And again,
Or the way they play basketball,
everyone
Chris
everyone
Webber.
argues that point. Everyone argues they should be paid, and that's how we started out this argument. Was that we can all agree on that, and I agree on it as well. The next sentence, the next 2 to 3 sentences is the hard part. How should they be paid?
Well, I'll tell you this, and I don't know if y'all agree with this or not, but I think I'm about to end the show because I got to take a piss real bad. So, just want to thank you all. On that note, it's like 10:43
Yeah,
Eastern time, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, thank you for joining the Boyd. Just want to let you know that we had TJ on, Ken, Jeff, Shauna, yeah, all right, JP and Heidi on. Thank you. I'm James Boyd. You were listening to the Boyd again. Seth Rock, my main man from the PH1 Ticks Click back in YHS Yakota
And
back in the
Brandon
day.
from Denver.
And I'm gonna leave you with track 195 from Side K. Peace.
rock, 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 rock.